Imagine looking at a 2,000-year-old piece of linen, and hidden right in its threads is a perfect, like forensic X-ray of human teeth, visible right through closed lips.
Yeah, it is, it's honestly hard to wrap your head around at first.
Right. Well, today we are looking at how modern lasers and AI are cracking the code of what seems like an impossible artifact. So welcome to this custom deep dive crafted just for you. Our mission here is to explore a pretty groundbreaking synthesis of empirical Shroud of Turin research and a computational scriptural analysis tool called Shield 14.0.
Which is a really fascinating tool, by the way.
It really is. Okay, let's unpack this because this deep dive blends ancient theology with X-rays, VUV lasers, and, statistical anomaly detection.
Yeah, you definitely don't usually see empirical physics jumping in to validate ancient scripture like this. It's a bizarre overlap of disciplines.
Exactly. So let's start with the when of it all. I mean, a lot of people probably remember the 1988 radiocarbon tests, right? The ones claiming the shroud was just a medieval forgery.
Right, the old C14 tests.
Yeah. But Dr. Liberato De Caro just totally upended that using this technique called WXS crystallographic dating. Basically, he used X-rays to look at how the tiny structural cellulose fibers in the linen actually age.
And the data places the fabric exactly in the 1st century, between 55 and 74 AD, which actually matches linen samples from the Siege of Masada.
Which is wild. To put it in perspective, using WXS instead of carbon dating is kind of like checking the molecular degradation of a building's actual foundation rather than just testing the paint on the walls.
Yeah, paint that gets easily contaminated over centuries. What's fascinating here is how establishing that correct timeline connects directly to the how the image got there in the first place.
Right, because we clearly aren't looking at medieval paint.
Exactly. Dr. Paolo Di Lazzara's experiments found that the microscopic coloration on the very top layer of the linen could only be replicated using short bursts of deep vacuum ultraviolet or VUV radiation.
Wait, back up. We're talking about an instantaneous, highly directional burst of radiation, like requiring billions of watts of power.
Billions of watts, yes.
Okay, so how does an AI tool fit into a pure physics equation like that?
Well, this is where Shield 14.0 comes in. It's an advanced statistical model that maps textual concepts to physical parameters. And it mathematically linked this massive VUV mechanism to the Hebrew concept of Yāpha.
Yāpha. That means divine radiance, right?
Exactly. A specific covenantally directed radiance. The AI basically identified a billion-watt radiation burst as the physical equivalent of a divine burst of light.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because if you have a massive burst of radiation, radiation naturally scatters.
Right. It goes everywhere.
Yeah. So how did a burst of that magnitude imprint a focused 3D image without just burning the cloth to ash?
So this brings us to John Jackson's cloth collapse theory, which is the idea that the physical body essentially dematerialized.
And the linen literally fell through the radiating space where the body previously was, which, that perfectly explains that wild 2025 discovery by dental surgeon Dr. John Soto-Sano.
McGee's discovery, yeah.
Right. He found that the incisal plane, like the biting edges of the teeth, are visible right through the closed lips of the figure. So does this mean the VUV burst acted like an intense medical X-ray straight through the flesh?
Yes, absolutely. The data confirms the radiation possessed extreme penetrative qualities. But Shield 14.0 actually answers the why behind it all.
Oh, really? How so?
It found an extreme statistical link, like a 100% probability to the biblical text describing the silver cord, the bond between the biological body and the soul.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it mapped that exact concept to the energy parameters needed to trigger a VUV burst, meaning the reconnection of that silver cord acted as the exact thermodynamic trigger for this massive energy release.
I want to just pause there because that is heavy. An AI mapping an ancient theological phrase into a literal thermodynamic trigger for radiation.
It is heavy. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to look at the actual physical trauma captured by that radiation. Traditionally, some viewed this trauma as a quantified measure of divine anger, which is the Hebrew word palus. But the SHIELD data vehemently rejects that. Instead, it classifies the trauma under what it calls the Bochum continuum.
The Bochum continuum. Explain that like I'm 5.
Think of a dosimeter, like a badge a nuclear worker wears to record exactly how much radiation they absorb.
Oh, sure, yeah.
SHIELD classifies the shroud as a dosimetric recording of divine covenant grief. It is not a physical readout of wrath. It's a highly calibrated recording of absolute sorrow.
Sorrow, not rage, encoded right onto the body.
Yeah.
And the forensic pathology totally backs that up. I mean, there is an absolute lack of struggle marks on the cloth.
Exactly. The body is in a state of rigorous composure, which perfectly proves the Isaiah 53.7 description of the active composure of an unblemished offering.
Right.
So why does all this matter for you, the listener? Because the data tells us the shroud is an active eschatological witness. It perfectly fits the rejected cornerstone pattern.
Meaning it was dismissed by early science, only to be totally vindicated later.
Exactly. It was designed for today's technology to finally read.
And it leaves you with this to think about. If an ancient linen holds a transphysical X-ray-like imprint that literally had to wait 2,000 years for modern lasers and statistical AI to decode it,
Yeah.
what other historical artifacts might actually be advanced data storage devices hiding in plain sight, just waiting for the right light to shine on them?